Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Tape Deck Tales. Tonight, we're going to be talking about summer vacation. And no, I don't mean the National Lampoon's movie. I don't mean we're going to be talking about road trips. We've done that already. We're going to be talking about summer break itself. And summer vacation was great because every day started the same way. You woke up at 11:30 in the morning, and somehow your parents still had no idea where you were by noon. Kids today have cell phones, GPS, and Life 360. And my parents had a much simpler system. They'd yell, "Be home for supper." And somehow that was enough. Summer vacation in the 1980s was basically a 3-month survival challenge. No phones, no internet, no bottled water, just a bike, a garden hose, and blind confidence. When I think about summer vacation as Gen X kid, I don't think about a specific trip. I think about freedom. The school year was over. There's no alarm clock. There's no homework. There's no schedule. You slept until whenever you woke up. You grabbed a bowl of cereal. You watched a little TV, jumped on your bike, and disappeared. Not for an hour, not for two, sometimes all day. Your parents didn't know where you were. Your friends didn't text you. You just knew where everyone hung out. The ball field, the swimming hole, the arcade, the convenience store, somebody's backyard. And somehow, everybody found each other. Summer felt different back then. The days felt longer, the nights felt warmer, the possibilities were endless. And you'd leave the house in the morning with $5 in your pocket and a head full of ideas. Maybe you'd play baseball. Maybe you'd go fishing. Maybe you'd build a fort. Maybe you'd do something that seemed like a great idea at the time. Do you want to see a dead body? In hindsight, summer wasn't something you planned. It was something that happened. And for a few months every year, it felt like the world belonged to us. Joining us tonight is Larry. Larry is a professional cook, which means while the rest of us spent summer vacation trying to catch fish, Larry spent it trying to figure out how to cook them. Welcome, Larry.
Hello.
And also joining us tonight is Michelle. Every summer movie had a damsel in distress waiting to be rescued. Well, Michelle looked at those movies and said, "Why don't I just rescue myself?" Welcome, Michelle.
Thanks.
We were supposed to have John with us again tonight, but sadly, John couldn't join us. So we miss him. I'll try and throw his questions at the other two and see how they do with them. Of course, I forgot to send them their own questions, so we'll see how they do with that, period. Let's talk about the summer vacations. The freedom of summer. When we were kids, summer wasn't just a season, it was freedom. No alarms, no teachers, no homework. You woke up whenever you woke up, grabbed something to eat, and head out the door. Sometimes your parents had no idea where you were for the next 8 to 10 hours, yet somehow everybody survived. And let's start with that feeling. Michelle, did your summers have any rules, or were your parents the part of the be home when the streetlights come on generation?
They were the generation of the streetlights, except we didn't have many streetlights because I lived out in the boondocks. So when my dad would turn the mercury light on, is what he would call it, that was time to, you better be home by then.
What freedom did summer give you that you didn't have during the school year?
I really didn't have any limits as to what time to come and go, unless mom was yelling. And like my grandparents lived right up the road, so I would just usually be at their house or the neighbor up the road, riding my bike, harassing all the kids. So I grew up with all boys in my neighborhood, so I had to be a tomboy. But I was the tough one. I used to beat them up. They might say different, but that's definitely what happened.
Larry, when you think back to being a kid, what does a perfect summer day look like from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed?
Jumping on our bikes and riding down to the river or the lake or whatever bridge we were going to jump off that day and just hanging out, swimming, and just not realizing we were living life to its fullest at the time. But looking back, it was definitely just no care in the world. And, you know,
Was there a place everybody seemed to gather for you during summer, Larry?
growing up in Oxbow, it was usually the park. or somebody's house, but when in doubt, it was the park. We used to skateboard, bike, hang out down there, hang out on the bandstand, under the bandstand. Um, that
So I'm
was
going to
the.
take. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say that was the central meeting place of our youth.
There's not
So
much else in Oxbow.
No, there's not.
I'm going to take John's question and I'm going to try to answer it from my perspective and see if I can't come up with something like that. The first thing that I wanted to do on the very first day of school, my brother and I had this cabin. It sat on our property. You could see it year round, but in the summertime, we opened it up. From Memorial Day to Labor Day, we slept in the cabin. We ran an extension cord, plugged it in. There was a bathroom, but that didn't work. So, being boys, for the most part, the front door was our bathroom. We stayed in the cabin. We had a TV, our Nintendo. We had a radio. We had fans in the windows because we didn't have air conditioning. And that was our freedom. And it was also our parents' freedom. I remember the summer of 96 thinking that maybe I wasn't going to stay out there anymore because I was, heading into my senior year. And my mom pushed us because they wanted their freedom too. They wanted the kids out in the cabin so they could have the house to themselves rather than our bathroom trips. And as far as where I grew up in Anchiota, the place to hang out was the pond. Officially on the maps, if you look it up in Anchiota, it's called Oregon Pond, but most people refer to it as Tormey's Ocean because for a while, Hayden Tormey and his son Bing Tormey, who when I was growing up, Bing was in his 60s, so they owned most of the land around Anchiota. Whatever the Williams family, which actually were married, related by marriage, so they owned the whole family. The Williams family, the Tormey family, was Anchiota was their playground, so to speak. And Bing was selling things off when I was a kid, so it wasn't the same way. But Oregon Pond or Tormey's Ocean was where we all went, and not just the few kids from Anchiota, but there were kids that would come from Vermontville and Bloomingdale, and even sometimes Saranac Lake. We'd play football. There was a sand bank on the other side of the road, so we'd play up in the sand. We'd jump off the top of the hill into the sand, we'd go running all the way across into the water. That was our hangout spot, so to speak. Guys, for both of you, if you could go back and relive one summer day from your childhood as it happened, what would it be?
That's an interesting question. And I don't know if I have the memory to pick just one day to relive.
It definitely is a tough one, that's for sure.
Yeah.
There's so many that I can think of. Bike rides. My friend Amy, who I've interviewed on my YouTube channel, her book, her and her brother going on bike rides. I think though I would have to pick swimming across that pond that I told you about, because it was something that it was kind of like that passing into adulthood is when you finally made that swim all the way across. It was a 5-minute walk around. It was a little bit longer swim than 5 minutes. The other end was all mucky and murky, so you were getting over there. You knew what you were getting into, and then you'd turn around and you'd have to swim back because it was private property. You weren't going to just walk up on their land. But that would be, I think, just because it was probably at the height of my physical fitness, and as you can tell by looking at me, I still am at the height of something. What about
I
you?
would have to say my one of my favorite times was up at I had this summer camp I would go to every year. It was called the High Braes up in Redfield, and it was a religious Christian camp, but it was actually so much fun. And as I got older, I would actually be a counselor there and spend the whole summer just up there spending the night, and it was just a great time. You met a lot of different people and all that. So I don't know. I have a lot of fun. I did a lot of fun stuff when I was younger.
I think if anything, if I could spend one day, it would be at my family's camp on Pleasant Lake in St. Lawrence County. Uh, my family sold it when I was probably about 17, and that was my second home. I pretty much grew up there in the summertime, just to go back and be there one more time would be pretty neat.
Mm.
So we're going to move on to our second topic, and this is one I've kind of sort of talked about. But one thing about summer is vacation is eventually the heat catches up with you, even in upstate New York. Most of us didn't have air conditioning, so when the temperature hit 85, 90 degrees, you had one mission: find water. Maybe it was a swimming pool, maybe it was a lake, maybe it was a river or a garden hose in the backyard. For me, it was the pond. My wife, where she grew up, they had a pool in her grandparents' house. Gen X kids could usually just any body of water, it could turn it into a day long adventure. Michelle, when you think back to summer, where did you spend most of your time cooling off?
Well, my dad had this old truck, and back then we would get all the neighbor kids in the back, and we'd get inner tubes, and he'd drive us up to the Redfield Reservoir. And we would just float around, splash, do whatever the heck we wanted. And there was no time limit. We just had a great time. Jump off the bridge, like he said earlier. Oh, the crazy things.
Did you have a favorite moment from there, from that reservoir that stands out above all else?
Oh, probably when we decided to jump off the bridge, and I was like scared that I wasn't going to come back up. And then once you do it once, you're like, okay, this is fun. And then you just keep on jumping off the bridge.
Yep.
That was my
Larry, what was
favorite.
what was the best swimming hole, pool, lake, or beach that you remember growing up?
I mean, my camp was probably the best, but second to that would be the rapids in Ross Sea. There was this little hole in the rapids where you'd all hang out around there and jump in and swim. And, if you were a little more adventurous, you'd go into the other side of the rapids and ride them down. And there was cliffs nearby you could jump off. And like Michelle said, it was always scary the first time, but once you did it, it was like, oh, this is cool. Climb
Yeah.
your butt right back up there and do it again.
Did you ever get into trouble when you were there?
A couple times because technically it was private property, and sometimes people would come out and tell us to leave, and rightfully so. They didn't want us getting hurt or drowning or suing them, and I can understand that now that I'm older. But at the time, I was like, why are you messing with us?
So, John's question was about the favorite place in town, and I've talked about the pond. So, I'm going to venture out a little bit and talk about a swimming spot somewhere else that doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, and that was in Saranac Lake. Right on Mirror Lake, where the ice castle is,
Hmm.
there used to be a beach. And around the time of my childhood, they closed it down. And it was always, well, there's something with the water. Well, we're going to fix it and reopen it. And 40 years later, it's still never reopened.
Mhm.
There's a beach on Lake Colby outside of town. They tell you to go there. There's probably some pools now. I haven't lived in Saranac Lake in, almost 30 years. So Lake Placid's got their big public beach. But the what little I remember from Saranac Lake was it was fun. I mean, it was right there in town, and it was free, which is big thing, especially growing up the way we did.
Right.
Uh, it says how far would you travel just to go swimming? You know, we would my friends and I, Wade and Brandon and we would bike. We would my brother. We would just ride our bikes forever back then, and it didn't matter if we'd ridden all the way out past old stony walled White Fathers. And if you don't know what that is, people look it up. It's a sad tale of how a New York State took over a town in the 70s and it just disappeared.
Hmm.
We
Funny how
would
that works.
swim out there, and at the old stony walled beach where it was where my mom was born, that town, and it's all that's left now is a church. But those were the days, just going out and cooling off, going back down at night to cool off before you'd get in bed, especially at Tormey's Ocean, Oregon Pond. Ride our bikes down, jump in, get back out, ride back to the cabin, crank the fan on, and watch, stay up, watch Leno. It was after we played some Tecmo Super Bowl, of course. All right, guys, what was the most ridiculous thing you ever did around the water that makes you wonder how in the hell you survived?
Well, other than jumping off many, many bridges without even knowing how deep the water was, or cliffs. Um, I mean, skinny dipping in October, which wasn't really summer, but I did it. I don't. Wow.
Hmm. What?
Go ahead, Michelle.
I'm thinking. I would say probably. Hmm.
Hold on a second while you're thinking. Larry, raise your bottle, your Coke can again. It's blurred.
Ah, oh, there we go. Nope. Nope. Apparently, we can't do product placements.
We can. Is my
Oh.
Pepsi blurred to you guys?
No.
That's weird.
Hmm.
I don't know how
Oh, you
that's
know what? It might be where like Zoom creates the background, even though it's.
oh yeah.
Oh.
All right. So anyway, back to you, Michelle.
Let's see. Probably a similar. Thinking back how like your parents really weren't really paying attention when you're playing in the water. And 911, you can't really call 911 from a cell phone back then. So I don't know, we could have probably drowned and nobody would have cared.
Uh,
Would later.
I was thinking about in the area that I grew up in. As you were entering back then, I don't know if it still stands, but there was a sign that said 67 miles of waterways. And one of those waterways is Rainbow Lake, which is not a lake; it's more like a river, and it flows into the Cushaqua, Lake Cushaqua. Again, not really a lake, but everything was called lake. My buddy and I borrowed a paddle boat from this boat rental. For us, we got to do it for free because we raked her lawn every spring and all that, and we spent our summer day paddling, and we got out to our destination, and we're so freaking tired. And our only options were to get out of the water, walk it all the way back, which would have been all the way around, or paddle back. And we paddled it back. And the reason this is brought up is last week I gave my kid some money to go yard sailing in my truck, and he came back with a goddamn paddle boat in the back of the
Oh,
truck.
really?
Bought it
That's
when we
awesome.
That's cool.
Good luck for him. I'm not getting in it.
Ah.
It was hard enough at 17. I can only imagine at 47.
Bring it down. We'll take it down the Oswegatchie.
There you go.
Well, whether you were swimming, fishing, boating, or just trying not to melt in the sun, summer had a way of getting us outside. And that brings us to topic number 3, the annual summer traditions. Every family had those summer events that happened every single year. Maybe it was the county fair. Maybe it was a camping trip or a family reunion. Maybe it was the dreaded back to school shopping trip that reminded you that summer was almost over. These weren't just events on the calendar, they were milestones that told us we were where we were on the summer calendar. The county fair meant summer was in full swing. Back to school shopping meant the countdown had begun. Larry, what was that one annual summer event that you looked forward to most every year?
The Governor of St. Lawrence County Fair. That was kind of there was growing up in Oxbow, you were closer to Governor, so that's where you always went. And so that was the fair for the summer. I didn't start going to Jefferson County till I was late teenager, early adult. And I mean, that was kind of it for here.
It's funny that you say that because for me, the Franklin County Fair was 30 miles away. So that wasn't really, especially what we didn't have a car for most of my childhood. That wasn't really an event. I didn't start going to fairs on a regular basis till I became an adult and married. So I was trying to think earlier what would mine be, but Larry, was it the event itself or the food that you looked forward to more?
Back then, it was the girls. it was the girls. The rides were fun. Hanging out with my friends was fun, but it was like, let's go look at some girls. Of course, I was too shy to talk to them back then. But
Oh, hey, you said you were just looking.
yes, yeah.
I was trying to think of a family vacation or tradition or something, and really, there's what stands out to me is two different points in my life. When I was real little, I talked about that cabin earlier. My uncle Mike would bring my cousins up from Perry, New York, which is south of Geneseo, Rochester. Ed, Matt, and Mike, much older than me, probably at least 10 to 15 years, depending on their age. They would come and spend a week every year. My grandmother would come up from Tupper Lake, and the first day would be excruciating because I was waiting for them to make this 6-hour drive up to Anchiota. And for a young kid, it felt like an eternity. And then we took the shopping trip to the only time of the year we ever went to Super Duper in Raybrook. It's a store that doesn't exist anymore. In fact, the building itself, I think, is a lumber center now. But for whatever reason, that was our one trip a year to Super Duper. And then when the boys got older, they'd graduated school and they all stopped coming. My grandmother's transitioned to coming for the first day of school instead of when the boys came up. So that Super Duper trip became our back to school shopping trip as well. But later in life, when that was gone and my cousins weren't coming up anymore, it became training camp for football. From 8th grade on, mid-August meant training camp and returning to football and 2-a-days and driving around town in between practices, looking at girls. And that was the thing that I knew was going to happen for 5 summers every year. And I think I missed that more than even my cousins coming up because it was such an age gap. I really couldn't do much with them. It was just cool to have company. Michelle, when you think of the summer traditions growing up, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
I would say every summer we would take a family trip out to Cattaraugus, which is out near Letchworth Park. And my grandmother's, what's that?
That's near Perry, where my cousins were from.
Oh yeah. And we would go out there every summer, at least for a long weekend, and just go to church. We would watch the fireworks. It was usually around the July, I would say 4th of July or something like that. And it was just like a big family reunion, and a lot of people they don't get together like they used to.
No.
So, but that was one of my favorite times. I got to see my cousins and cause trouble and eat lots of food and all the things.
What were you excited, Michelle, for going back to school shopping, or depressed because it meant summer was ending?
I didn't really like shopping. And then I feel like my mom and dad, we didn't really have a lot of money, so it would be more like hand-me-downs and well, you need sneakers, so we're gonna go buy sneakers. Well, that wasn't really exciting, so but yeah, it was like the end of the summer and you're like, ugh.
All right, this one's for everybody. What's the annual summer event that you would bring back exactly the way it was if you could?
Annual summer.
It's kind of towards the end of summer, but my aunt used to throw a Labor Day weekend pig roast. And she had a camp up in the mountains of Western New York. And people would go up on Friday, pitch their tents, and start a pig on a spigot and drink beer and hang out. And there was 2 ponds for swimming in. And it was always just that last kind of bit of summer, warm weather, hang out before going back to school. And it was always fun as a kid growing up because there was always cousins and cousins, and kids, and it was magical. You just didn't know it at the time, but it was.
What about you, Michelle?
Oh, wow. That's a lot. I really enjoyed the fair. But that was kind of mid to late August before school, but we would go to the demolition derbies and those were always so fun, but I still go to them, so I can't really say I'd bring them back because they still are redneck hillbillies.
I was trying to think of something that I haven't mentioned already. The last day of school when I was in elementary school, we would have a paper fight on the bus.
Yes. Oh, we did that too.
The late George Besaw was my bus driver, and he's, I credit him with my love of the Baltimore Colts and John Unitas, because he would tell me stories of John throwing the ball to Raymond Berry, who just passed away last week. Raymond Berry at 93. George would set up this big paper fight at the end of the year, and picking up the elementary students was the last stop of the day. And it was a half day of school. So we had what few high school students rode the bus. A few middle school students didn't have regents and all that, but it was mostly just elementary kids, right? And he had bags and bags of paper. The only rule is you had 5-10 minutes, whatever it was, but then you had to help him pick it up afterwards. And it was so fun. It was something I looked forward to every year, and then it just stopped. I don't know if somebody got hurt or what happened, because that's always how it is.
Yeah.
Somebody always ruins it for everybody else, but those were fun times. And I wish George was still alive and we could go back and do it again. It'd be cool. So not to bring everybody down, the summer that everything changed. We all have that summer. Most summers blend together. You remember the baseball games, the swimming, the vacations, the friends. But every once in a while, there's that one summer that stands apart from all the others. Maybe it was when you got your first job. Maybe you got your driver's license. Maybe you graduated high school. Maybe your best friend moved away, or you met that someone special. Whatever it was, that summer ended differently than it began. It was the summer you really realized things were changing. The summer you took a step toward becoming an adult. For me, the summer where everything changed was 1994, because I got a job. So from now on, and for the next 30 plus years, work has been a part of life, right? But it was summer was still fun in 1994, even though I was flipping Whoppers at Burger King, being a Whopper flopper. We still had those nights, you were only working about 6 hours back then, but now I had money too. Minimum wage was $4.25 an hour, so it's not like I had a ton of money. And I was riding my bike because I was 15 and I didn't have my driver's license. But it changed the dynamics of summer. I was spending time in Saranac Lake more than I'd ever done before. I was hanging out with the girls that worked at Burger King until they all quit before school started, and I stayed for 3 more years. But it was the summer that everything changed. And looking back, how important that summer would become, July 6th, 1994, I started training under I don't even remember the guy's name, but I remember it was his birthday. It was his 28th birthday. And to realize that I am now 20 years older than he was when he trained me, it's just, life was never the same after that. It was a good change, but it was different. Michelle, what was that one summer that changed your life the most?
I'm gonna say when I got my first car and I felt that I had freedom to do whatever I wanted. And then I got a job, and then I got another job, and I played sports, and like just my time started to be more compressed into, okay, I played volleyball, I played softball, and then, oh, gotta go to work. Oh, you gotta go to your other job. And I kind of wish like I wouldn't have worked so early in life, because I was only 16 and I had 2 jobs. But it, had to pay for gas, which, wasn't really expensive back then. But yeah, I would say that. And then I was working at McDonald's, and I was working at Ponderosa in Pulaski.
Oh, I miss Ponderosa. I love that restaurant.
I was there since they opened it, and then when they shut it, I was like, "Dang, how in the heck?"
The one in Potsdam, and then the one in Watertown. And I don't know, I'm pretty sure the one in Potsdam's gone too, but it's just another one that we had up in Lake Placid was called Howard Johnson's, was similar.
The Hojo.
If you could go back, Michelle, and talk to yourself that summer, what advice would you give?
Oh, I would have been like, stay out of trouble.
Hmm.
I don't know. I probably wouldn't change much. I just probably stay away from the boys. They're nothing but trouble.
I represent that.
But you know what? I probably wouldn't change much. I feel like everything in my life is the way it was supposed to be, I guess. Not
You
not
know, I might tell myself to. Well, I wasn't old enough probably, so tell my dad to go buy some shares in Yahoo or something. But
Yeah.
Larry, was there a summer where one event completely changed the direction of your life?
Yeah. Um the
the
summer,
summer of '69. No, I'm just kidding.
well, it was 94, but yeah, same idea. um yeah, that was when how do I that's when I lost my innocence and became a man.
There,
And
the follow-up question is really going to work well on this one.
listen, I can even tell you what day it was because it was the 50th anniversary of D-Day. Like, I was in the back of this little Nissan car, banging my head off the side of the car because I had no clue what I was doing. But yeah, that was something.
Follow-up. Did you know it was happening at the time, or did you realize it years later?
Yeah, yes and no. Yes, because I was like, oh, my sex life has begun. No, because man, I took that and ran with it. Anyways,
what's that one thing that happened during the summer vacation that helped make you the person you are today? This is for everybody.
I'm sorry. Okay.
While Larry's composing himself, I'll talk about that first day of work. I wanted to quit. I'm standing in the back feeding Whoppers into the broiler, and it's 95 degrees. It's July 6th, as I said, and I wanted to walk out, but I had always heard my mom say, "We're not quitters. We're Williamses." That's my mom's maiden name. We're not quitters. Vincent's, we quit, but I kept the mentality. No, I'm just kidding, Vincent's. We don't. If any Vincent's are watching this, I'm just kidding. It's a line from Friends. Tribbiani's quit. No, but I couldn't quit unless I had another job, and that's July 6th, 1994. About a month to the day after Larry became a man, I started working.
Oh goodness!
Well, how are you going to follow that up?
You do it again.
So before we head to the close, let's be honest. For some of us, the summer that changed everything was the summer we discovered we actually had to get a job. Now, in 94, when I was 15, I didn't have to get a job. But by 96 or 95, a year later, when I had my driver's license, I had to keep that job. I moved over to McDonald's. The brand new McDonald's opened in Saranac Lake in 95, and they were going to pay us $5 an hour. So I moved over there to get more money, and they promptly cut my hours from what I was making at Burger King, so I ended up making less. And a month later, I was back at Burger King with my tail between my legs. But anybody else just that year you realized you had to start working and summers were never going to be the same?
I started working at 14. My first job was at the Admiral's Inn in Alex Bay. I worked 6 days a week, 48 hours, making minimum wage, and I thought I was on top of the world. It wasn't until close to the end of high school, or maybe slightly after, that I was like, man, working sucks. I don't want to do this all the time. When you first start, there's a novelty to it and there's money, but that wears off after a while.
Well, also another thing, we didn't have bills.
True.
We had gas in our cars. We had to pay car insurance, which on a beater back in the mid 90s was probably $100 a month if you were, if you had to, because you had to have the bare minimum on a car that was probably 20 years old.
Yep.
We didn't have bills. So we could, in between football practices, drive around for 4 hours just seeing, where the girls are. And
$5 a gas would get you somewheres back then.
Yeah. Gas was under $1 a gallon and maybe 99 cents a gallon. And you could, and again, parents didn't care. They knew that I was in Saranac Lake practice, and I'd be home for after dark and would eat everything that was made because I was in football mode.
I used to love going out later at night or early in the morning. We're talking anywhere from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Just roll down the windows of my '89 Ford Ranger and go drive the back roads and listen to music. And like that was living back then. That was, you know.
I remember the summer before my senior year, Metallica's Load came out. And that was what we played. We played Load for most of the day. And to this day, when Until It Sleeps, Fuel, Ronnie, Outlaw Tournament, any of those songs come on, I can recite them without, I don't need the lyric video on YouTube. But Wade and I listen to those songs so much that, I could probably break into a chorus of King Nothing right now if I had. The funny thing about summer is when you're a kid, you think it'll last forever. But eventually the summers get shorter, the responsibilities get bigger. And before you know it, you're the adult telling stories about riding bikes, swimming holes, and banging your head off the window of a car, standing out until the streetlights came on. Looking back, summer vacations wasn't really about where we went. It wasn't about the destination. It was about the freedom. And for Gen X kids, we had that freedom. It was about sleeping in. It was about riding bikes until dark. It was about the swimming holes, the county fairs, the family vacations, the first jobs, the friendships that seemed like they'd last forever. Some summers were filled with adventures, and some changed our lives. Some summers we didn't realize they're special until years later. The funny thing about growing up is that you never know you're living the memories until you're talking about them decades later. There's a great line in the movie The Sandlot, is one day you're going to go out with your friends for the last time, and you're not going to know it.
Yep.
Some summers changed our lives. Some summers we didn't realize were special until years later. The sounds, the smells, the sunshine, the freedom, those are the summer days that stay with us. And while the summers now may feel shorter, the memories never fade. Thanks for joining us on another episode of Tape Deck Tales. Now get outside and enjoy summer. Make some memories of your own. Until next time, we'll see you at the beach.
Saturday cartoons and arcade lights, roller skates and summer nights, calling friends from the kitchen wall and hoping somebody was home to call. Every picture tells a story now. Looking back, I wonder how the years roll by so fast and free, but those moments still live inside of me. The whole world was right outside, and we never thought twice. We were home when the street lights came on. Back when the days seemed to last so long. Living life one memory at a time with a cassette tape soundtrack and a world to find. Those were the days we thought would never